where you're watching from, okay? So, today's creative checkup, we've been walking through for the last 2 or 3 weeks some concepts about staying relevant, staying connected, staying grounded in this turbulent time. It's obviously, as I just said about the teachers, it's one of the most turbulent and most incredibly frustrating in a lot of ways season for creators because all the rules have changed. Whatever you were doing 3, 2, even a year ago, even 6 months ago, is not the same anymore. You're finding yourself most likely in brand new, uncharted territory. And so, what I've been trying to do is walk myself back 4 years ago when I was actually working on my new project at the time, which was the God and Gigs book, which is behind me, which is still available. But it's been 4 years. It's kind of like the anniversary month. It came out and was premiered September 6th. So August was about the time that I was doing pre-sales and preparing to launch the book. And the podcast that we also have, the God and Gigs show, was also broadcast or, yeah, was also premiered at the beginning of August around 2017. So this is kind of like our anniversary month. So it always makes me very nostalgic and I want to always look back. But this is a totally different season to look back because so much has changed in the past few weeks and months and years. I almost felt like I couldn't look back at my old book and use any of that or even share any of the lessons from that book given everything that has changed since the pandemic started, since so many technological changes have happened in the last 3 to 4 years, I started to feel that this information wasn't relevant anymore. And so I asked myself the question, are these concepts that I talked about in the God and Gigs book, are they relevant? Or is it time to kind of scrap things and start over from scratch or things totally different? So I also want to ask you the question if things have changed in your life over the past 3 years, 3 weeks, 3 months, are you also kind of feeling like things have changed? If things have changed in your life, just type in yes or changed or something like that in the last few weeks or months. If you've kind of felt like you've had to rewrite the script, start from scratch creatively in your personal life, if anything in your life does not feel like you're abiding by the same rules anymore because all the rules have changed, then definitely just give me a yes or something like that in the comments so I know that I'm not alone in this because I honestly feel sometimes like I'm the only person that feels like I've got to start all over. But maybe I don't. Maybe I don't have to start all over. Maybe there's some things that I can do in my creative life that are a little different. I'm going to take my glasses off because once again, I always feel like the glare and the lighting is always so weird from my light. Actually, did I turn my lights on? That might be a reason. Let me scoot off the thing right here. Oh, look at that! Look at the light. Amazing. You turn the lights on. Amazing how things work. It's crazy. But yeah, so I have felt definitely like things have changed so much in the past few weeks and months that I really had to go back and say, is the thing that I used to do, the concepts I had, the foundational things that I based my creative life on, my creative career on, my even my faith on, are those things still going to work? Or do I need to just start from scratch and just rewrite the entire script on my creative career, on my life, on my the way I do gigs, on the way I approach, performance? Is it even worth it to consider music as a full-time occupation anymore? So many questions. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's questioned that. If it's even possible to make a living in this day and age with all the changes we've had based on the pandemic and these other situations. So, Tobias, thanks for joining us, man. Appreciate you jumping in, and always some other people that I see. Always jump in the chat and just let me know. Just send me a little comment so I know you're there with us. See a little bit jumping in the screen. So anyway, just gonna pick up my book real quick because again, the last 3 chapters of this book are what I'm kind of basing this on. And again, it's because not just because I want to sell the book, but because I honestly wanted to ask you and us together, do these concepts still apply in 2020? We started with, on last 2 weeks ago, we started with staying connected, talking about staying connected to your faith, your friends, your family, and your fellow artists. That's echoed in the book as well. And then we talked about dealing with being able to stay stay connected to your goals, which meant visualizing your goals, respecting the business, and establishing your priorities. So those three things we've already talked about. Now, this week, I want to talk about the last three things. Brian, thanks for joining me, man. What up? Good to see you, brother. Thanks for chiming in on the comments, guys. It just helps to know that somebody's there on the other side of the camera. I know some people can't join us in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day. Totally understandable. I tried to pick a time where, West Coast people, it's 11 o'clock over there. So if you're in the West Coast, you can join us. If you're in the East Coast, it's about 2 o'clock. So it's still around lunchtime. So people there can take a short break with us. We only go about 30 minutes or so. So we try to give you some inspiration and jump right back out so you can get back to your day. So the three last topics in the book and the concepts that I'd love to ask you if these things still are relevant are, they spell out ICE, spell out ICE, right? The whole word for the book and the service steps spell out service. So SERV, we've already done those 4 letters. So now I'm talking about ICE. So I stands for invest in yourself. And so when I wrote down this book, Invest in Yourself, I was not just talking about investing like in stocks and bonds, not just talking about money, although I clearly am considering the idea of buying and spending money on the things that bring value to yourself as a creative person, as a musician. So again, question, is it still relevant for you to invest in yourself in 2020 in the age of coronavirus and all this other stuff when so many things have changed? My answer would be 100% yes. You still have to invest in yourself, probably more now than ever before. So if you agree with that, again, just let me know. Jason, great to see you, man. So if you agree with that it's important to invest in yourself, just type invest in the comments. Just invest, because I think we get the idea of investing meaning money, and we think, well, investing doesn't have anything to do with me because I don't have any money right now, or I'm trying to get myself together. I don't have a 401k or a retirement account, and investing is like, something that either I think about or has only to do with finances, but has nothing to do with my business. And nothing could be further from the truth, my friends. We've got to be investing in ourselves more now than ever before. We've got to be investing in ourselves because right now the playing field is level. Everybody is dealing with the same struggles. All the musicians, all the creatives, we are all facing the same struggles. So what's going to be the determining factor in the difference between those of us that succeed and those of us who kind of have to just muddle along and try to make it work and survive? The difference is who's going to invest in themselves the right way so that the seeds you plant now will grow when all of this is over. Because as I said in my previous creative checkup, we may feel like COVID and coronavirus is here to stay and that the industry shakeup is like, this is just a no tomorrow kind of situation. But there is a tomorrow. And every single major business you can think of was created or built in a recession. Amazon was not Amazon before 2008 and the big .com crash. But they were positioned in the right place so that when the industry came back and all this .com stuff started coming back and people got back on the internet, Amazon was primed and ready to become the global giant that it is now. Before, Amazon was just selling books. They weren't even in this industry where they sell everything to everybody. And it's the same thing true for us as musicians and creatives. Jason asked, what are the right seeds? Great question, man. I would say the first right seeds are determining what deserves your investment, what deserves more time, energy, and yes, money. So for a lot of us, I would say it's a struggle to think, okay, should I be investing more time in, let's say, my performance, my instruments? Now you might say, okay, well, it doesn't make any sense for me to invest in instruments or invest money in these things because I'm not playing. But let's look at it another way. Is there a possibility that this is the best time to invest in that stuff because maybe it's cheaper right now because these companies are struggling, and maybe you can find some great deals on equipment that will be more beneficial to you in about a year or so. So would it make sense to put something on layaway or put something where you can invest a little bit more in some equipment that you've been eyeing but you never pulled the trigger on? But now that the industry is kind of in a free fall, things are a little bit messed up. Maybe you can find that equipment where someone's willing to let it go a lot cheaper than they would have in a few months ago. I mean, if people aren't using their equipment, you might find some great deals out there on an eBay, a Craigslist, on a Guitar Center clearance. So that's just an example where you just got to take an example, take a look, a hard look, and say, okay, if I invest in this place now, can I make a return on this investment in just a few short weeks or months? Heck, maybe you could turn around and sell that same equipment in just a couple of weeks or months when things turn around and things get better. So I'm not saying you should start flipping equipment, but some people can do that. That's one way you can consider investing in yourself, investing in a business, and finding the right place to invest. And so John Mike, one of the guys that we interviewed, he's the one that really gave me the concepts that I just told you about, flipping equipment and looking at Craigslist and getting equipment cheap. You might want to check out his book. He has a book called an ebook that I actually helped with. It was so cool to help him with this. Mastering the mindset of making music full time. I think that's the name of it. It's a free book. Go check out John Mike's website, johnmike.com or johnmike.net. Actually, I'll put that in. And he talks about that, how to find the right things to invest in. And I'm just borrowing one of his concepts. My concept from the book is simply, don't forget to put yourself first. If you are earning any kind of money, if you are thinking in terms of how can I build my business, I've been personally investing a lot in Facebook advertising, which is not something that normally I would do, but Facebook is having trouble even selling ads right now. You're right, Jason. People are doing that right now. Companies are doing that. They're looking for angles. Where can I invest where people are kind of losing faith, and where can I come in and occupy that market? And so, musically speaking, creatively speaking, this is not the time for us to stop investing in ourselves. Okay. And so the way I put it here is that you are the CEO of You Incorporated. Okay. We are all in corporations. Yeah, I see my screen is acting crazy again. I apologize, but hope you can hear me okay. So you are the CEO, and you've got to be able to make the right financial and then management decisions to run your life, and that includes investing in yourself. So I would say make sure you don't think it's all about survival right now. Make sure you're thinking forward. Think about the future. Think about what kind of things you haven't done yet, and you could try things out. Live streaming is one thing I haven't done forever, and now I'm investing into live streaming because I realize even now that I'm talking to you, this is a great way for me to learn more about how to connect with my audience. Investing in email, investing in getting better with my social media, investing in getting better with my tracking, learning how to track and do keyboard tracks and doing video tracks and anything where I'm building up my ability to work on myself. I'm making CEO kind of decisions based on what I can do better in the future. So that's my first thing. So glad you guys are getting some value out of this, man. Number 2, challenge yourself to grow. This is another chapter in the book. Once again, it's following along with the service steps. You can find this book that I'm talking about, godandgeeks.com/books. Okay. So challenge yourself to grow was a concept in the book, which I talked about and simply said, you got to be more than just a musician. And right now I'm seeing Jason, Tobias, Brian. I might be talking to some other people that are not musicians, but this book was specifically for musicians. And in that book, I wanted to say, don't just put all your identity around simply being a musician. You have to be able to grow beyond being a musician. So once again, the question I would ask, and the question I already answered kind of like to myself is this relevant? In 2020, do we still need to challenge ourselves to grow? Well, I would say more than ever, 2020 has challenged us all to be more than just musicians. None of us have been able to stay put. If you're a musician right now, a creative, I guarantee you, you've had to change something. So if you've had to change and challenge yourself, then just type that in the comments. Give me a little like feedback so I know that you have been either changed or challenged. You can use either one. I don't care which word you use. But That's something that you've been challenged to do. I guarantee you. You weren't able to stay put in terms of just what was working in January and February. So now the thing that I would like to put here is a quote by John Maxwell. I love John Maxwell's stuff. And this is a quote from him. He said, "Change is inevitable, growth is not." So what do you think John Maxwell meant by that? Well, I think he's saying that just like we all found out, we can't stop change from happening. I mean, things are changing whether we like it or not. Things are changing whether we want them to or not. The industry has changed. Gigging has changed. Church has changed. Like you name it. The way we walk around, the way we wear things that we didn't used to wear before, the way we communicate through here that we didn't communicate before, through Zooms all the time, all of that has changed. Yeah, Jason said both C's, exactly. Change and challenge. I think those two go together, right? So my question to myself is, how can I grow through these challenges? Well, it kind of goes along with the invest in yourself. How do I then turn around and say, okay, I can grow through this challenge by putting myself in an uncomfortable position that will then benefit me in the long run, even if I don't like it right now. So my growth personally, I would say has a lot been in terms of not being so uh, worried about relying on what used to work. So gigs, for example, I'm kind of letting go of the idea that I have to be a gigging musician 3 or 4 or 5, 6 times a week. I've had to change and grow from that concept that maybe performing isn't going to be my number one thing anymore, and I'm okay with that now. And it was before COVID happened that I was thinking this way, but now I'm thinking, you know what, maybe I should be able to do more from my home, from my studio. Maybe I should be doing more teaching and coaching. Maybe I should go back to school and maybe even consider getting a new doctorate or a master's or something that grows my mind, because I'm now way past the age that I did my bachelor's and I've never considered going back. So Jason asked, is it enough to just adapt? Yes, and that's a great question. I would say yes, adapting is good, but I think growth is more than just adapting. I think when you adapt, you change things a little. When you grow, you almost become like a different version of yourself or a better version of yourself. So kind of like, kind of go around the question a little bit, but I would say you got to do both. You have to adapt individually to like individual situations, but you have to grow into a different kind of person to adapt to even greater situations. So something's going to come around the road that we didn't even see coming, and just moving a little bit at a time, sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes you got to be like just a totally different perspective and have a whole nother perspective ready for that new shift to come around. And so I think it has a lot to do with maturity. We're kind of going to deep waters here, but I like it. So if you're mature enough as a musician, as a creative, to totally switch things up, to totally at one day say, you know what, I'm going to do something totally different, but still feel secure enough to do it, I think that means you've grown. And that's something that takes a lot of maturity, a lot of faith, takes a lot. But if you're able to do it, I think you find yourself in a better position in the long run. And I think that's the key, is that you've got to be able to see change coming and not be scared to grow in the midst of that change. COVID was a huge change, but it's not the first one. It's not going to be the last. Live streaming is a huge change, but that's not going to go away. Even in terms of streaming music and how we make money, that's not going to change. But then there's new changes coming soon. How do we grow through those situations? And I think the key is, again, be willing to look at the new things that could happen in your life as a creative, and don't be afraid to step into something that you haven't ever tried before. Follow some footsteps, get some great advice, but realize at the end of the day, we're all just learning as we go. And so you got to be able to take some risks. And so we're doing really good, guys. We're tracking really well. Thank you so much, you guys, for following. And if you want to share this, by the way, we're going to be on a few more minutes. Feel free to share this with some friends, because we have a couple more steps, and then we're going to go ahead and close out for today. The last one is evangelize via your gifts. The last chapter in the book, evangelize through your gifts. I don't think this one needs a lot of explanation, but I will just touch on it. Obviously, evangelizing has to do with both the good news, because this is God and Gigs, and we do talk about the fact that we are a Christian worldview based publication. So I'm always going to point people back to the idea of Jesus and the cross and Christ. But this does apply to people even outside of Christ's fellowship or a Christian worldview or a church background. The key is, what are you going to do with your gifts now that you've been challenged and now that you've been investing? Who are you doing this for? Is it just to pay bills? Is it just to get your name in Billboard? Is it just to be the best drummer, the best musician, the best songwriter? I mean, a lot of these things that we see in, popular culture that seem to be what success is all about, it's no longer, again, very applicable. I mean, do you want to have the biggest selling album right now if you can't tour? You really can't have a big tour because there aren't any tours, so you can't have the biggest tour on the block. There's not a huge amount of audiences that are, going to be attending one particular thing. So is it really important to just be big, or is it more important to reach the right people? So I would ask you guys, those of you who are watching and those who are watching on the replay, what's your reason? Or more importantly, who is your reason? Who is your reason for doing what you're doing? Because I guarantee you, if you don't have a what and you don't have a why, you do have a who. Are you doing this for yourself? Are you doing this for your family? Are you doing this for God? Are you doing this for your future children, grandchildren? So in the chat, guys, if you want to, I say guys, sorry, global guys, ladies and gentlemen, type in, who is your reason for doing what you're doing? Because when I say evangelize through your gifts, I'm talking about making somebody's world a better place, making somebody else's life better because you created something, wrote something, sang something, played something. So when you're evangelizing, we call that the good news, right? So good news, we all need more good news right now. We all need as much good news as we can get. So in the comments, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, just share with me a little bit. Who is your reason for doing what you're doing? And notice I am not saying what is your reason or why. Is it, for me, I would say, and it's actually a great question. I say I do this, number one, I do this definitely for God. And then the who right after that would have to be, I do this for my wife and my family, because I really want them to be proud of me, and I want them to have something that they can look back on one day and say, Dad, my husband built this for us. He created something that we could either benefit from in terms of our livelihood, or that we could one day use to help other people, or we could pass his business on down. So I do this for my family. I do this for God. I do this for my parents. Our parents deserve, I believe, all the accolades and the credit for putting me where I am now. So I do this for them because I want to make them proud. And I also want them to see that I'm continuing to teach the same principles that they taught me, and continuing to share with other creatives. I do this for my friends and my fellow artists who I believe in. Some of you guys that are watching right now have been in my life for years, and I do this for you. So my reasons are not what. My reason is who. And so I think of who I'm doing this for, and that's why it's still relevant. Because the industry has changed. My circumstances might have changed. Live streaming, gigs might have changed, but my who has not. I'm still doing this for the same people that I meant to do this for before COVID, and I will continue to do this for the people that I believe in and care about after COVID, after these situations change. So because my life has changed does not mean my who and my reason has changed. And of course, my first overall reason, the one I always focus on again, is God first. Jason said legacy. I love that. Legacy for your future, your kids. I love that, Jason. So I really want to impress on all of you that are watching this. If you're watching this on replay or live right now, thank you so much, everybody. Brian, Jason, Tobias, I saw you guys comment. Anybody that's watching this also, I saw a few more names, few more numbers pop up. So if you didn't comment, it's cool. But I want to tell you, the reason why I do this is, again, because I want to encourage you not to lose hope in this season, not to think that what you were doing in the past is suddenly irrelevant, won't work. You got to change everything. You do need to change some things, but certain things don't change. You still got to stay connected to your family. You still got to stay established in your priorities. You still got to respect the business. You still got to visualize your goals. You still got to invest in yourself. You still got to challenge yourself to grow, and you still have to evangelize through your gift and help other people. Again, I just went through all those concepts in the book, not because I want to sell the book, but because I want to make sure that this book still had meaning and relevance in 2020. And as I've walked through these 7 concepts, I've even given myself more comfort that they do. So guys, if you want to check out that book, godandgigs.com/books, that's where you can get that book, God and Gigs, Succeed as a Musician Without Sacrificing Your Faith. It's been out for 4 years now. This is our 4-year anniversary. It's also got a study guide that goes with it. Where is my study guide? Here it is. I happen to have it right here. So I also have the God and Gigs study guide. It goes along with the book. You know, I should probably just put them side by side. I don't know. But God and Gigs is also got a study guide that goes with it. You can get both of those together at the godandgigs.com/books site. There's also our devotional, Your Art, God's Heart, that you can also get there. All of our books are there at that particular website. Our podcast comes out on Thursday. We'll probably play some of this talk, but there's also some new interviews coming up, so you definitely want to check out the podcast. Hope you guys are subscribing to that, the God and Gigs Show, on any podcast network, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, you name it, any of those apps. Just look up the God and Gigs Show and you'll see it there. All right, so guys, we're right at 2:30. Thanks so much. 2:30 Eastern. Those of you who are watching in other time zones, hope you guys enjoyed this. Jason, thanks so much for checking out. Brian, thank you so much. Tobias dropped in. And I always like to check around a little bit more, but I think all of my chat was working, so I saw everybody that joined in. We weren't on Instagram today because I couldn't get the Instagram thing working, so we'll just have to repost this for our Instagram folks later on. But thank you so much, gentlemen, ladies, for watching. Everybody that has watching this on the replay. Again, please feel free to comment. Let me know what you're thinking about this, if this helps you. If you'd like to hear other topics or something else that we can talk about on the checkup, then let me know, and we'll make sure to put those in a future checkup. But until then, thank you so much for joining me. See you guys next week. Have a very safe and inspirational and effective week, man. Everybody go forward, be positive, stay safe, have some common sense, but most importantly, don't get down on yourself. Don't lose hope. Don't lose focus. You're here for a reason. People need you to keep being creative. People need you to keep performing, to keep creating things that will make the world a better place. God put you here for a reason, and that's the reason, is to be a creative that is making the world a better place by evangelizing through your gifts, by sharing what you have. Okay? Thank you, Jason. So glad that blessed you, man. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.